The story of Upbuild began in a monastery. On our quest to understand ourselves more deeply, we recognize that it is our attachment to our egos, our identities, that gets in the way of being our true selves. This podcast will help you understand your ego. It will help you better understand your inner world, the motivations, insecurities, and emotions that affect your every action and relationship. Welcome to Upbuilding the Self.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Upbuilding the Self. My name is Rasanath, and I'm one of the partners at Upbuild. And I am here today with my long-standing partner, friend, and co-founder, Hari Prasad, who was my partner in crime since the days of yore, I would say. Welcome, Hari Prasad.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Great to be with you.
Likewise. And today we are going to have a discussion on the masks we wear, which has been a topic that has been very dear to your heart, Hari Prasad, for a very long time. So much so that this was the founding piece, the first real piece that you wrote for the Upbuild website back in the day. And I would love for you to first share your inspiration around this topic about the masks that we wear.
When I was a student at New York University studying film and making movies, this was between 2002 and 2006, I was immediately drawn to characters that I would shoot. I would script and I would shoot who wore masks. And that was sort of a signature that I had, which was very different from what I had seen a lot of in the movies, and certainly that my peers were working on. And I never understood why I was so drawn to that visual of the mask. And it was so prominent that when I first got into school, I remember having my dad put on a mask of a Pokemon and playing a part that I had scripted for him in Washington Square Park in New York City. And then from there, each successive year, I had characters that I was writing and filming wearing different masks. And so it was only when I became a monk, that was in 2008, and I guess a little bit prior to that, when I was listening to lectures from my guru, Satchidananda Swami, that I sort of put it together. What's going on? Why the fascination with masks? So he gave a particular talk that was titled Remove Your Masks.
I must say, before you proceed, that can be a very controversial statement in the times that we live in, but I hope we all understand that we're talking about the masks that we wear every day that doesn't let people come in contact with our true self.
Totally unrelated to COVID-19 or anything of the sort. This is predating that, and no political statements here. Yeah, thank you. So there was this talk, Remove Your Masks, and the central premise was, and so this is what I was going to say, it is the idea that we're all wearing masks, not some of the time, not on occasion when we need them, not because it would be exciting or interesting to wear them, but we are all wearing masks all of the time. And we're so afraid to show our face. We're so afraid to not have a covering, to not have a barrier between us and the world, between us and ourselves, between us and each other. And so I really took that to heart. And, in all of our work, it's been such pervasive. It's the foundation of everything we do. Is we want to be our best self, and we have to see what's getting in the way. What's getting in the way is the ego, an identity of who we think we should be rather than who we are, an identity of who we think we should be rather than who we actually are. In other words, an ego mask, a mask that covers who we are so that we can project something to the world for the sake of proving to ourselves that I am something, I am worthy, I am enough, I'm okay, I have a place, I have an identity, I'm good. And that is exactly what is obstructing our own satisfaction, our own ability to experience who we really are, and all of the freedom and fulfillment and connection with ourselves and each other that comes with that.
Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction to your inspiration around this topic. I would like to step in a little more to unpack why did you feel so moved by this?
I think it was that I was caught red-handed. And that was very confronting and very revelatory for me. It's just like this book by Soren Kierkegaard, The Sickness Unto Death, which started me on my spiritual path. It was confronting because he was saying that there's something that you can experience of life that you're not experiencing. And you will never experience it if you keep the same paradigm that you currently have. And I was thinking, who are you to tell me that? I'm good in life. I've got it. I'm happy. I have great friends. I have a career. I have dreams. I'm like, everything's going to go well. I'm really good. And you're telling me that I'm feeling despair. He used the word despair, which is heavy. And I was like, no. I was thinking, no. And then after really processing it for 4 days straight, I came to the conclusion that he was right. And I had to actually like hang my white flag and say, I surrender. You know more about me than I know about myself because you've studied the human condition and you get this. And so similarly, I was caught red-handed.
Can you explain a little more about how you were caught red-handed? I'm very curious. I haven't heard you say that before in all the time that I know. And I'm very curious about what was that experience for you when you felt you were caught red-handed?
So I was going to share that for the masks, but for the Kierkegaard, you're in despair being caught red-handed. It was the sense that I think I've got all things together and like I'm such a happy person and I'm so smart and I'm going to be so successful and the opposite sex will take notice of me. I will have everything in life that I want. The world is my oyster. I was thinking like that. And I didn't have all of those things, but it was hinging on the future. Like I will have all these things. And I had reasons to believe that I will get those things because things were good in that time and they were pointing in that direction. And what I realized, and it's very subtle and it's very difficult to penetrate. It's not so easy. And it took me 4 days of intensive meditation on this. Like I couldn't think of anything else. I would be using the restroom. I would be going to sleep. I'd be waking up. And it was always reverberating in me. But are you really happy? Are you really satisfied? How do you know that this is all that life has to offer? Are you really so deeply connected with yourself? And are those things truly going to satisfy you? Because you're not satisfied yet. Clearly, it's becoming revealed that there's all this hankering, all this I want. I have to like be on the treadmill and I have to keep doing. And then one day I'll have everything. But will that day ever really come? No, it started to become clear that wise people who lived more than I had and had seen more than I had and truly were wise, they understood that that's not you. There's no end point. You don't ever arrive. And you can say, well, but that's what just keeps you going. But that's a suffering. That's actually a suffering. And I don't really know who I am truly and what actually lights me up and makes me full and free. And I was getting a sense that Kierkegaard knew, that he had experienced. And when I read about his life, I understood that that was absolutely the case. And even when he left this world, the end point was not, oh, I have to do, and then like I'll achieve and I'll have all these riches and I'll have all these material gratifications and ego adoration. People will adore me for my ego image. But actually, when he left this world, he was such a luminous, completely radiant, exuberant person. And that was like, I don't know what that is. I want to know what that is. I want to experience that level of connection to the deepest self that he had and that so many others across all different wisdom traditions have attained. That is the real wealth. I want that.
What was it like when you heard Satchidananda Swami speak about remove your masks? You said that you felt you were caught red-handed again.
Yes, I understood what was getting in the way. I understood why I haven't experienced that deepest fulfillment and that deepest understanding of who I actually am. That instead, I'm busy crafting a life that's made of these masks of self-image, who I think I should be, who I want to be, what I want people to see me as, how I can prove that I'm good enough, which has nothing to do with the pure self and the peaceful, exciting experience of not needing to be something and not needing to project something or prove something.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier how when you're continuing to long and wanting more and more, it seems like the goalpost is always moving. You said that there is suffering, that is suffering. And I have grown up, I know of myself to be a very ambitious person. You know that pretty well.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that as drive. And I know a lot of people would call that drive. And none of us want that drive to end. So I'm very curious to understand why you call that suffering.
Well, I mean, that's what brought us together, that drive. And there is purpose to that drive. It's just not the purpose that we're using it for, right? That drive can allow us to experience the heights of existence if it's applied directionally for that purpose. But if it's applied to attaining accolades, becoming something in this world, and attracting attention, recognition, sensual gratification, that drive is then steering us away from the deepest part of ourselves, the deepest self itself. And it can be used to actually give back also. That drive, the reason we formed Upbuild is because we want others to take up that mission and to experience that beauty and that fulfillment that comes with being who we are. And our drive is huge. I mean, it's like immeasurable. So if it's not the drive that's the problem, that's not the suffering. Although it does create what we talk about a lot as holy discontent, because we want to experience something that is so pristine. We want to offer something that is so pure and so beneficial. And it takes a lot of hard work and patience. And we haven't yet gotten to the fullest extent of that. So there's discontent with that, which is good. That drives us to keep going. It's holy discontent. But there's also a perverted reflection of that drive, which is towards the ego, self-centeredness, and external ideas of who I should be.
So what you're saying is that, and this refers back to the remark that you made about the suffering itself, is that when the drive gets directed towards further fortifying the ego and further fortifying the masks, which many times that's the direction we go in, then it just prolongs the suffering. Would that be accurate to say?
Exactly. And it's never enough. And you just have to keep doing. And you're never able to feel the gratitude and the contentment and the richness within, because it's always more. And that is suffering. That's like hunger, as Mother Teresa, and we often quote, would say, the starving people in Calcutta are not as hungry as the persons in New York City who are so wealthy. And when we talk about hunger, that means suffering, right? At the same time, again, we can say that there is a healthy hunger when you have an appetite to eat. There's a healthy hunger there. And that is when it's put towards the real self and connecting with other people as they are and trying to encourage and inspire them on that path of self-realization. That's a healthy hunger. That's not the starvation.
Got it. Thank you. So tell me more about how we experience this suffering through the masks that we wear in this world, both through your own personal experience and also based on the work that we do. What do you see about that suffering?
Well, I mean, I think the most prominent place where you see this show up is in relationships. And the more intimate the relationship, the more likely this is to crop up in a very pronounced way. We are afraid of ourselves. We're afraid of the different sides of ourselves that if we were to unleash, what havoc they could cause and sometimes do cause or have caused in the past. And, I myself experienced that when I was, I guess I would say throughout all of my romantic relationships at different periods in my life, even up to my marriage at present, I experienced sides of myself where I'm not validated. I'm not seen for who I think I should be. I'm not seen for the mask that I want. And I get so angry. And I feel like this is unfair. This is not right. And what's the point of me doing anything? You better validate my mask, damn it. If you don't, there will be consequences. So the most apparent way that it shows up is in relationships typically. And again, the more intimate, the more it's likely to bring it out. But we see this in the workplace all the time: conflicts, tension, distrust, inefficiency, lack of inspiration. This is all over our work life, where we spend the vast majority of our lives. And that is a travesty because we're trying to get validation for these masks. Don't you think I'm great? Like, I did this great, didn't I? Aren't I on a trajectory where I'm providing enough value? Or like, I took that on for you. Aren't you so grateful to me? Like, there are infinite ways that this comes out. And it is real suffering. It never allows us to be peaceful or happy in any of our situations. And it stems not from relationship with others. It stems from relationship with ourselves, which is why that is the foundation.
So why do we wear the masks in the first place?
What it's doing for us is it's protecting us from being exploited, and it is garnering appreciation. Those are the two functions of the mask. One, to protect from exploitation. Two, to garner appreciation. So every human being needs safety, psychological safety. That's the number one thing that Google, came out with many years ago in this New York Times article, their study, that psychological safety is the prominent or the primary characteristic of high functioning teams. It's the most sacred thing that allows us to function at our best. And that's why we talk about trust so much in our work with organizations. It's for that reason, right? So that is a genuine human need, 100%. Everybody needs that. We can't argue with that. Likewise, we all need appreciation. We need validation. We need to feel like we're okay and people like us, they love us, they appreciate us, right? So those are not the problems. That the mask is helping with those things.
Okay.
However, we overcompensate and we want endless appreciation. And we are so terrified of exploitation, we don't even admit it to ourselves. I mean, the toughest person in the room is the one who's most offended. And we use the mask because we're terrified. Would you still love me if I showed you? Or would you hurt me if I showed you who I really am? And if I allowed myself to be seen?
So essentially what you're saying is that we probably don't even like, we have already made a decision about our true self, that it is unlikable, that it may not really get the validation and the love that it needs. And so we have to become something or something else other than our true self to garner the love and to feel protected.
Yes.
That's the introduction of the masks.
Yeah, that's accurate. And it's crazy. It's nuts because we don't even know what the true self is. And we're shooting in the dark thinking that we need something to cover it because we don't like it. But we have no relationship with it. It's buried under all of this fear and desire to acquire, need for acquisition. So it's crazy that we are so afraid of discovering and showing who we are. It's not based on anything, it's impulsive. And if we did the work to actually dig up that self, to remove all of the external interference and to invest, to nourish the self directly through practice, through spiritual practice, especially, that's really what we're talking about. If you want to make the self strong, then there would not be so much fear because ultimately you'll get more and more in contact with it. You'll remove more and more interference and you'll be charmed. You'll be so endeared and allured by that self, and you'll be less afraid to show that self to others. And one day you will claim that fully. You will own it fully, and that will be you. There will be no more masks. Done, finished, forever. Those are the most attractive people on the planet. I've met such people. My guru, who I mentioned, is one of them. Your guru, Radhanath Swami, is another. Both of them were instrumental in walking this spiritual path. Likewise, Søren Kierkegaard, I would consider in that camp, somebody who was fearlessly looking to discover his real self and achieved it, who got there.
Thank you. So when you say with such assurance that there is a true self, especially when we are so far from it, and even when we speak about the true self, the idea seems so abstract, which is also partially the reason why the mask seems so attractive, is because it's tangible. There's something that someone says that they like or they love. And it's very easy to become that because, hey, it's tangible. I can then get the love that I am deeply seeking. Whereas this whole thing with the real self, I don't even know what it looks like. I don't even know how to define it. Right? So in the light of removing the masks and in the light of the abstraction from the real self, one, how do we develop the desire to walk towards the real self when we don't even know what it feels like? And number two, if we do desire that, what's the smallest step that we can take in that direction?
Yeah, wonderful. So I'm right there with you. And this is something which I'm very passionate about as well, that we cling to the familiar and the comfortable. And it doesn't even have to be that you value this and so I'll become it. That's one way that this shows up, but it can also be the path of least resistance. Hey, I've done this all my life. This is how I know to be. And this is convenient and it makes me reasonably okay. And I can stretch that from reasonably okay to be like, life is good. Like I'm good. I'm happy. Things are good. I can stretch that until something shakes the confidence, there's an existential crisis, which is bound to happen. And then, of course, there's death, right? And losing our loved ones. So it's a house of cards that we are comfortable with. So we need to see that the impetus to go to the more abstract is to recognize, yes, this is tangible. It's so tangible that I can see how flimsy it is. I can see that if there's a tiny gust of wind, it's all gone.
So in reflecting back to what you just said, it seems like the recognition of the fragility of the masks and the honesty that is required to recognize the fragility, because many times we sedate ourselves because then we can just be numb to the fragility of our own masks. But, we can never really fully numb ourselves because somehow deep down, the emptiness is just very clear, almost undeniable, I would say. But then it takes honesty to recognize that, one, we may not be paying attention to the emptiness. And number two, we may not be honest about the fragility of our own masks, even when we say that, I think I'm pretty good. That we know And some people say, well, I don't want to jinx it. We have heard this too. Things are pretty good, but I don't want to jinx it. And in saying that is also the admission to the fragility of the masks that we wear. And it takes honesty to then develop the desire to move away from that fragility. Thank you for expressing it. What small steps can we take in that direction?
The main thing is, if we want to remove our masks, we first have to see them. So that is the work. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough. This is what Upbuild exists for. This is what we want to share with people. That's why we created this organization, because we need to see the masks that we're wearing. Otherwise, we're shooting in the dark once again. We're shooting in the dark. And to get a grip on it, I have to develop such attunement, such keen, sharp awareness. And so, we had a podcast episode, if you think you're self-aware, you're not. Because if you think you're self-aware, you're not seeing how much you don't see.
That's right.
Right? There is so much work to be done. This is a lifelong journey. It is not cheap. It is not like, oh yeah, I got a little, top 3 ways to remove your masks. Like this is not something which is worthy of clickbait, right? It's not, this is the real deal. Like, this is where the rubber hits the road. It's all about building our awareness through subtly seeing ourselves, challenging ourselves to go deeper, to understand, hey, why am I doing what I'm doing? Oh, because I want some validation here. Oh, because I'm insecure right now. I'm feeling ashamed in this moment because I just cleaned the bathroom and my wife didn't notice. She didn't tell me how sparklingly clean it is. And now I don't feel that my contribution to our home is seen. And maybe I'm a bad husband, or maybe she just does more work around the house, or maybe what she does is more important. And so I feel bad. But then, I can just deny that. Yeah. There was a tiny moment of shame, or I don't even have to experience that tiny moment of shame. I can just suppress it. I just be like, it's totally fine. No, I'm good. But then we won't learn, we won't grow, we won't get to the heart of things. It's all about building awareness, seeing the things we're afraid to see, seeing our masks and calling them out to ourselves at least. As we progress, we can start to, in safe spaces, also share with others what we're seeing and develop relationships where we remove our masks together and we encourage and inspire each other to be our best selves. But it starts with me. I have to see my own masks and call that out to myself. I just tried to prove something. I wanted to be right in that argument.
Very, very good. Thank you. That was, I could feel your passion. And I can say with years of having known you that the passion is ever fresh.
Doesn't go away. Just as the masks don't go away, the passion to remove them doesn't go away. But the hope is that over time, the masks are getting fewer and fewer and fewer, or we're getting a better and better grip on them so that we're able to remove them more and more and start to peer into the depths of the real self, which, there's nothing, this is what I live for. This is what it's all about.
And it seems like as the layers of the masks slowly and surely come out, the real self starts to get more tangible. It seems like it doesn't stay as abstract. Every step that we take to unpeel, that the tangibility in the other direction
Great. Yeah.
starts to become more and more real.
That's what I was trying to allude to earlier, but I think it's worth underscoring that as you go, you get more and more experience of the real self. And there's a sense of purity and a sense of innocence. I know what it's like to not be proving. I know what it's like to not be defending. I know what it's like to be seen by people. And I know what it's like to be touched at heart, to be melting in my heart, that you truly see me. I was able to expose myself, to share myself, and you really see me and are receiving me. And I can offer that experience to other people. That is the most precious, sacred thing. And at the deepest level, the level of the soul, it is so inspiring. It's just a force like nothing else in existence. So it becomes clearer and clearer as we go. Undeniably,
undeniably. It seems like it's characterized by a very deep sense of freedom that we experience that's unlike anything else that we have experienced before. And I wanted to state that because it's important to know and measure if we are walking in the right direction. And one way that I have experienced it, and others that you described how free from their masks, is they are free like I have not seen anybody else.
Yeah.
Very free, unshackled in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Hari Prasad. This was a fantastic conversation, and I'm sure we will come back to this topic with hopefully a slightly different angle again, because there is no end to how much we can repeat this. And again, once again, I really, really appreciate your passion. And I also see that passion in the work that you do on yourself and what you bring for other people. I'm very deeply appreciative of walking on this journey with you. It's a privilege.
That means a lot to me. That's very touching to hear. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really love being able to go to these places with you and to be able to share with everyone. It means a lot once again. Thank you, Rasanath. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for listening to Upbuilding the Self. Upbuild is a leadership development company that offers workshops, coaching, and other services to help you on the path towards being your best self, free from the shackles of the ego. To learn more about our work, visit our website, upbuild.com, and sign up for our newsletter to gain access to podcasts, reflections, and upcoming events. If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes to leave us a review so that others can find and benefit from the podcast. We look forward to being with you again next time.